So this year, the Physics Nobel Prize was awarded jointly to Roger Penrose, Andre Geis, and Reinhard Genzel for their role in the discovery of this object, black holes, which are definitely among the most stunning objects in the sky. So what is a black hole? A black hole is basically a bounded distribution of matter covered by kind of a surface called an event horizon, which acts as a one-way membrane. And although it allows everything to get in to the bounded distribution, it does not allow anything to come out of that. So, I mean, anything meaning even light. Light is also restricted, so that cannot come out of the surface. The surface is called an event horizon, and that defines a black hole. So you do not know what is going on inside. So you can ask the question, is it a reality or is a mathematical object which you will find in books and your exercise notebooks, not in reality? So we shall come to that later. But first of all, let us go to how it was first predicted and where does it come from theoretically. So general relativity is the greatest theory of gravity, best theory of gravity, I should say. It is a very unique kind of a physical theory where it was given by Einstein in 1915, where he says the basic idea is somewhat like this: for gravity alone, you need not think of any forces. So a particle under the influence of gravity will follow the trajectories laid in space-time. Look at this word carefully, space-time. I have said space-time because with the advent of special relativity itself in 1905, we know that to describe physics, our space is actually four-dimensional, three space coordinates, x, y, z, that we all know about, and also time. Without time, you cannot localize any event. So that has the status of a coordinate now. So the geometry is four-dimensional. So you know that matter begets gravity. So matter or energy, their equivalent, also a knowledge out of special relativity, that begets gravity. And gravity lay the trajectories of the particles. Particles meaning the stars, the planets, or you or me or electron or proton or anything, or even light rays, photons. So following this Einstein's idea, by solving Einstein's equations, Karl Schwarzschild in the same year, 1915, obtained a solution for the geometry that would be there for a spherical distribution of static matter. And if the mass, then there was a peculiarity of the surface. If the mass of the object, of the whole sphere, is confined within a surface given by an expression, I may say a few expressions here and there, but that will not matter much in understanding the talk, which is 2gm over c square, where g is the universal constant of gravity, Newtonian constant of gravity, m is the total mass of the spherical object, and c is the speed of light in vacuum. If the total mass of the object is restricted within this radius, then an event horizon will form. So that was the prediction of Schwarzschild's solution. So to get an idea about how dense or how compact the object could be, so you know that the mass of the sun is around 700,000, the radius of the sun is around 700,000 kilometers. That is the radius of the sun, approximately. So if the whole mass of the sun is confined within a radius of only 6 kilometers, then you will have an event horizon. Because 6 kilometers is the radius of the event horizon for the sun, if the sun becomes a black hole. So in that case, you will have a black hole. So this is the kind of spherical object that you will need for a black hole. So why this is important? See, at the center of the sphere, I'm going back to the Schwarzschild solution once again, when it talks about the geometry of the space-time. At the center of the sphere, there is what is mathematically called a singularity. A singularity is a very bizarre kind of a situation where laws of physics will break down and things, physically measurable things, will become infinity. For instance, in terms of geometry, you will measure the strength of gravity in terms of curvature. The curvature will become infinity at singularity. So that is a dangerous, very dangerous kind of a situation. Laws of physics will break down. If you can see that, then you will have no chance to explain that. And also, as the curvature is infinity, if you come close to that, you can well imagine what will be the situation of your body. So, so the event horizon hides this singularity from you. So that is the requirement of the event horizon. So a black hole is actually composed of this singularity covered by the event horizon. So how does it form? So you know that normally a star radiates and it gathers its energy from nuclear reactions. When all the nuclear reactions are complete, the star dies. And these nuclear reactions give rise to some pressure. And you know that the gravity is all attractive. So given the matter distribution, so if there is some density fluctuation, some place is more dense than the other, then the dense situation will attract all other and the whole star will collapse under its own gravity. In the normal situation, the pressure of the fluid, pressure of the matter inside the star prevents this collapse. But when the star dies, then there is no pressure and there will be an unhindered collapse. Nothing halts that. And the whole matter will crush into that singularity. All particles will focus to a single point. So that is the basic idea. And now we come to the contribution of the this year's Nobel Prize winners. First, Penrose. In 1965, Penrose came up with a result that within the realm of general theory of relativity, where gravity is described in terms of geometry alone, there is nothing to prevent a singularity in this kind of situation. Incidentally, he worked with light waves, light rays. If you love to look at light as particles, then we shall say that he worked with photons. So the photons cannot escape this singularity. That was Penrose's work. So the singularity is inevitable. This was shown by Penrose. And that was in 1965. And in 1970, Penrose and Hawking together came up with a theorem called the singularity theorem, where they proves this theorem with much more rigor, that a singularity is inevitable in general relativity. So that was their work. So the singularity, which is an essential part of the black hole, was theoretically proved by Penrose, first 1965 and then in 1970 by Penrose and Hawking. So now you see the event horizon becomes important. After the work of Penrose, you can see that there will be a singularity in a gravitational situation. So the event horizons become essential. Right. Now, what if the Schwarzschild surface, that is the event horizon that we talked about from the beginning, is itself a singularity? In fact, from the Schwarzschild solution itself, there was some apprehension that this is also a singular surface. A singularity cannot prevent a singularity. So for its being an event horizon, it should itself be a regular surface. But it was shown that the curvature is quite regular at the event horizon. It is not a singularity. Later, it was proved that it was basically this Schwarzschild singularity. The singularity of event horizon appears because of a bad choice of the coordinate system. In 1957, two physicists independently, one is Kruskal, the other is Zekers, they showed that they can give a coordinate system where this event horizon is a very regular surface. There is no question of any singularity. But the peculiarity of a one-way membrane is still there. Now, if you promise that you will not use this analogy rigorously, because this is not regular, this is only an analogy. For a spherical kind of a surface, I can give you a simple analogy why this event horizon acts as a one-way membrane. You know that the geometry is now four-dimensional, 3 space coordinates, and 1 time coordinate. They are all coordinates, but mind you, time has a bit of a different status. Because in space coordinates, you can have a reversal. You can go back in X, Y, Z, but you cannot go back in time. Because if you could, then that would violate the causality, and the cause-effect relationship will go astray. So time should be unidirectional. For a spherical surface, from the Schwarzschild solution, you can see that t, the time coordinate, or rather r, which is the radial distance from the center of the object, as you enter the event horizon, r becomes the time coordinate. So as it enters the event horizon, it becomes time, so you cannot reverse it. I said this explanation is too simplified, and this holds only for a spherical kind of an event horizon. You know that spheres are good things, but the actual stars are not really spheres. Sphere is a good approximation, but the more real symmetry is the axial symmetry. They have a rotation. They are like spheroids or something like that. Even our sun is an oblate spheroid. Later, it was shown by Carr that this Einstein's equations has also a solution for an axial symmetry where this property of an event horizon still holds. So there is no escape. This event horizon will be there. Not escape, this is a savior, because this event horizon gives us the luxury of staying away from the singularity, from looking at the singularity. Now, for some real situation, I shall also talk a bit about how this black holes are formed. I have already said when the star is dead, the fuel is all exhausted, there is no pressure, and there is nothing to prevent the gravitational collapse. But does Einstein's equation or general relativity really allow that? There was a paper in 1939 by Oppenheimer and Schneider. You might have heard of Oppenheimer. He was the chair of the Manhattan Project, responsible for making the atom bomb. Robert Oppenheimer was an astrophysicist to start with. So he, along with his collaborator Schneider, published a paper where, with a very simplified assumption, where the density is uniform in space coordinates, that is same everywhere. For a spherical distribution, they showed that without pressure, there will be indeed an unhindered collapse as a result of Einstein's equations. So this is correct. So the black holes are reality. Till now, only theoretically on paper. But later, singularity is inevitable and requirement of event horizon is there. And but you cannot admit anything to be real unless there is some observational evidence. Now, how can you observe a black hole? Because that does not emit anything. So you have to depend on some indirect evidences. There are a lot of evidences. One of the very good evidence came very recently from 2015. It started pouring in. Our friend Rajesh is amongst the team who discovered that gravitational radiation due to the coalescence of or the merger of black holes. So that has proved the existence of black holes. But two other persons were given the Nobel Prize for detection of black holes. These are different kind of black holes. Normally, we are talking about stellar black holes. Black holes as a result of collapse of stars under their own gravity. But Andre Ghez and Reinhard Genzel, they observed that there is a black hole-like object in the center of our own galaxy. So how do they arrive at this decision? They arrive at this decision from the motion of the objects close to that. And they finally located that there is a distribution of matter which is very huge. And the mass is around 1 million solar mass. Mind you, 1 million solar mass at the center of the galaxy, but you don't see that. The evidence of the mass comes from the motion of the nearby particles. So from the particles, you can guess, or you can have a measure of the total mass of the object and the radius of the object. And the radius and the mass match that event horizon business that we started our discussion with. So with this, it has been proved that the black holes are indeed reality. There are other evidences also, but I'm talking about the work of Genzel and Ghez because they won the Nobel Prize this year. And this object is called Sagittarius A. And Ghez worked with the Keck telescope in Hawaii. She works in University of California at Los Angeles. And Genzel worked with European Southern Observatory, which is in Chile. And he is in Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics. Okay. I think I have made a very simple explanation of the existence of black holes or the theoretical prediction and their observation by Ghez and Genzel. But we started late. I think I shall get a couple of minutes more. I shall tell you two more things. One is the friends of the organizers asked a title for the talk. I gave the title Trump of Gravity. So I shall spend a few seconds in explaining that. A black hole is the trump of gravity in the sense that gravity predominates over everything, even photons, and gravity doesn't allow even the photons to cross the barrier of event horizon. So gravity is so strong. That is the explanation of the title of the talk. And if you allow me, I shall spend a couple of minutes more on some Indian connections with the discovery. First of all, I go to the singularity theorem. Penrose in 1965 showed that in general relativity, in the realm of general relativity, the existence of singularity is inevitable. In 1955, some 10 years before Penrose's work, A.K. Raychaudhuri published a paper in Physical Review where he showed similar things. His interest was completely different, not black holes. To start with, his interest was in cosmology. he wanted to find some singularity-free solution in cosmology, which does not have this Big Bang kind of singularity, which is a different story. We are not talking about that. But he arrived at an equation called the Raychaudhuri equation, which later found that it is very, very general and can be applied to any gravitational situation, which gives you what is known as the convergence condition. And from the equation itself, you can show that under some given conditions on the matter distribution, singularity is actually inevitable. So Raychaudhuri was interested in gravity alone, so he worked on, as I said, this geometry where in gravity you talk only about the trajectories in geometry, you don't talk about forces. But if you include other interactions like electrodynamics or other forces, then of course there will be forces and accelerations. Later it was showed that the same Raychaudhuri equation with an inclusion of a single term, divergence of acceleration, can be used to include all other interactions as well. I mentioned the work of Penrose and Hawking in 1970, which they did 5 years after 1965 work of Penrose alone, where this Raychaudhuri equation is properly mentioned. They said that Raychaudhuri equation is the pillar of their work. This is one connection. The other connection is that I also talked about the Oppenheimer-Schneider collapse. When there is no pressure, the fluid under its own gravity will collapse. That was given by Oppenheimer and Schneider. So this was published in 1939. Just 1 year ahead of that, in 1938, Visheshwar Dutt published a similar work, where he showed that a uniform density without a pressure will collapse under its own gravity. Visheshwar Dutt did not live long. He died during some operation, so his name is quite obscure. Fortunately, the International GR Society, they published Visheshwar Dutt's work as a golden oldie in their journal in General Relativity and Gravitation, popularly known as the GRG journal. So in gravitational collapse, these two work are very primitive kind of work where they assume uniform density and all that. But for real distribution also, there is a lot of work today on gravitational collapse, and they can show that the matter will really focus to a singularity. And amongst them, there is also another Indian. He's not alone. There are quite a few groups throughout the world. One of them is Pankaj. So I think I have crossed my time limit. So I shall stop here. Thank you very much.